There's a secret mark on your money, and banks really don't want you to notice. It's hiding in plain sight, and once you notice one secret, you'll start seeing them everywhere. So what is this strange little symbol doing on your cash? Why do basketball hoops have nets? And why do toilet seats have that weird gap at the front? Let's find out. Welcome back to Amazing Secrets Hidden in Everyday Things. Ever bitten into a Kit Kat and wondered what's actually inside? Probably not, but now this seed is planted, I've got you wondering, haven't I? The packaging claims it's just crisp wafers and milk chocolate, but hidden inside that crisp snap is a secret twist that's a little too Black Mirror for comfort. Because the creamy choco layers between those wafers, they're made of ground up Kit Kats. No, really. During production, any Kit Kats that come out imperfect, broken, malformed, or off spec don't go to waste. Nestle crushes them up, mixes in more cocoa liquor and a little sugar, and boom, there's your filling.
Yeah, boy.
So yes, every Kit Kat has technically been made of other Kit Kats as far back as the bar's creation in 1935. It's almost too meta to handle. A Kit Kat lives, a Kit Kat dies, a Kit Kat is reborn. But what about the first Kit Kat ever made? What was that made of if there were no broken Kit Kats before it? The boring answer is chocolate and wafers. But at some point, Nestle must have realized they could kill two birds with one stone by using crushed up broken bars, turning chocolate chaos into smooth and delicious profit. Thing is, all this Kit Katception has only been confirmed for Nestle-made bars. Over in the US, Kit Kats are made by Hershey under license, and they've stayed suspiciously quiet on whether they do the same. How very Wonka of them. Still, next time you snap into one, just know you might be biting into a bar with generations of Kit Kat innards inside. Delicious. Android phones with Gemini AI enabled have a secret function that blows the rest out of the water. If you have the Gemini AI app and have enabled voice commands in your settings, you can use Harry Potter spells as voice commands. After getting your AI assistant's attention with, "Hey Google," you need simply say, "Lumos Maxima" to turn the flashlight on and "Nox" to deactivate it. Silencio will put your phone on silent mode, deactivating all notifications. And Accio followed by the name of an app will open that app. For example, Accio YouTube will open the YouTube app. And if you throw your phone out of the window and shout, "Wingardium Leviosa," you'll regret it. That's not a command. Yet. It's in your hand, in your pocket, and on your mind almost every second. Your cell phone. But if you've sworn allegiance to the Apple Empire, you might have noticed that sometimes when your iPhone rings, you get these big red and green buttons to decline or accept calls. But other times, there's just a slider that says slide to answer. Well, buckle up, because what seems like a simple design choice actually has a weird little backstory. Apple intentionally gives you two totally different incoming call screens depending on one super sneaky factor: whether your phone is locked or unlocked.
Say that again?
If your phone is unlocked, Apple assumes you're actively using it, so boom, big juicy buttons. But if it's locked, you only get the slider. Why? Because in their infinite Apple wisdom, they realized people were accidentally answering or declining calls while their phones were in their pockets, also known as the dark art of butt dialing. This wasn't always how it worked though. Back in the early iOS days, there was only the button screen. But people complained that they kept accidentally answering or declining calls while rooting around for their phone. So when iOS 6 dropped, Apple brought in the slider for locked screens. This wasn't new tech for Apple though. It was inspired by the original iPhone slide to unlock home screen feature. But here's the kicker. When you only see the slider, there's no decline button. But there is a way to reject the call that Apple don't tell you about. Simply double-click the side button, like you're doing a cheat code just to avoid awkward phone convos. Oh, and one more thing. Have you noticed the display bezels on iPhones now expand a little when you press the side buttons in iOS 18? It's one of those blink and you'll miss it things, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. No, that strange protrusion on the side of your backpack's fastening clip isn't a weird manufacturing error. A surprisingly large number of people don't realize this is actually an emergency whistle. Many backpacks include them on the chest strap clips for immediate, easy access. You know, in case you get lost in the woods or are called to referee a soccer match last minute. It happens to the best of us. If you live in a major city, you may have spotted these strange hollow-looking sections on certain skyscrapers. These aren't a sign of lazy construction workers, though. They're sneaky ways of getting around zoning laws that limit the number of floors allowed in a building. As the floor is inaccessible, usually only housing a stairwell or lift shaft, it can add to the height without legally being considered a floor of the building. It ensures the higher units have better views. These loophole floors can be put to good use though, assisting with airflow, making the building better able to resist strong winds. Next time you're in the city, take a look around. You'll quickly notice there's glass everywhere, from storefronts to skyscrapers. But if you look closely, you might notice that some larger buildings in urban areas include these dotted patterns on their glass. But these aren't for style, they're a visual warning system. Not for us, but for birds. Birds often can't distinguish clear or reflective glass from open sky or trees, so they fly straight into it. And the result can be deadly. In the US alone, hundreds of millions of birds perish each year from window collisions, and that's where these dots come in. These subtle patterns break the illusion, signaling to the birds they cannot pass through them. The color matters too. White dots are better contrast for windows reflecting greens, browns, and other dark hues, while black dots work best where reflections are bright like clouds or sky. So while a few dots on glass might not look like much to us, that all changes when you have wings. Winglets, sharklets, little doohickeys. These are all names given to the upturned tips at the end of aircraft wings. Far from just an aesthetic choice, these upturned tips save airlines a pretty penny in fuel expenses every year. They help reduce the amount of drag pulling against the wing and create more lift, helping to streamline airflow, increase efficiency, and consequently, reduce fuel costs. And let's be honest, they look pretty cool too. While we're on the topic of airplanes, their mighty wings are also commonly equipped with little metal spikes running up and down their lengths. These are known as static wicks and provide a low resistance point to discharge static electricity that can build up while flying through air and clouds. Not only does this prevent navigation and radio interference, it also considerably reduces the chances of a plane being struck by lightning. So yeah, these spikes are your friend. Let's go for the aviation triple whammy with these tiny holes at the bottom of airplane windows. If you're like me, you probably thought, isn't a hole the last thing you want in an airplane window? Well, they're actually there to regulate the pressure between the outside of the cabin and the inside. Airplanes' windows actually have 3 panes, and the hole helps to ensure a balance of pressure between them, placing most of the load on the outer pane. The hole also stops the windows from fogging up and so is responsible for all those awesome cloud-top views. Ice, the cool hero of every cold drink on a hot day. Sure, it looks like nothing more than frozen water, but that couldn't be further from the truth. Ever notice the ice at restaurants and bars looks different? Why the hole in the middle? And why not the classic square cubes you use at home? Well, it turns out there's some surprisingly smart science behind that shape. This type of ice is often called gourmet ice or bullet ice, and those hollow centers? They're not a design quirk, they're intentional. The hole increases the surface area touching the drink, which means your drink chills faster than with a solid cube. But speed isn't the only reason. Restaurants and bars don't have time for slow-melting artisanal blocks. They need a lot of ice, fast. That's where commercial ice machines come in. These industrial machines don't fill up trays like your home freezer. Instead, they dip super-chilled metal cylinders into water. As the water flows down, it freezes in layers around the outside. Once the ice is thick enough, the machine gently warms the metal and the hollow cylinders drop into the bin, ready to go. Other places you'll see this kind of ice include hotels, fast service spots, and airplanes. Basically, anywhere that needs ice on tap. So next time you spot ice with a hole in it, remember, that's not a flaw. It's a frosty feat of beverage engineering. And it doesn't stop with ice. Next time you sit down with a cold one, take a look at the bottom of your beer glass. Notice those tiny ridges or etched patterns? They're called nucleation points, and they're not just there for decoration. These tiny rough spots are there to deliberately agitate the liquid, giving carbon dioxide bubbles a place to form that aren't seen in regular glasses. That's why you'll often see a steady stream of bubbles rising from the bottom of your glass. It's engineered fizz, fine-tuned to release more aroma, enhancing the flavor of your drink. So next time you raise a glass, take a second to appreciate the science happening right under your nose. Literally. Here's to nucleation! Cheers! It may surprise you to know there's a very good reason behind the coloration of different beer bottles. Most beer bottles were green until the 1930s, when it was discovered that brown bottles are far superior at blocking out light. This was handy as prolonged exposure to different kinds of light causes a chemical reaction in beer that results in some pretty potent aromas when the drink is finally opened. With brown bottles, this effect is filtered out effectively. That said, some green and clear bottle brands intentionally keep the skunky smell, as it's become strongly associated with the familiar experience of drinking their beer. I'm looking at you, Desperados, you stinky delicious devil. Moving on, let's soak up that alcohol with my favorite carb, bread. But next time you grab a slice for a classic PB&J, stop. Ever wondered why your bread slice has those weird ridges? It's all about how it's baked. If it's pan-baked, the shape depends on the pan. A tall, square pan gives you those classic square sandwich slices, but if the dough rises over the edges, it creates bumps on each side. Then once cut, the indent remains intact on each slice. Even that mysterious third ridge at the top that sometimes appears plays a part and is the result of scoring the top to control the rise, leaving a ridge in the center. So every ridge tells a story of heat, rise, and slice. That humble slice of bread, it's a mini baking biography. Whether it's on a pro court, at a rusky park rim, or directly in the face, shooting some hoops is one of the greatest pastimes out there. But have you ever stopped to wonder, why do basketball hoops even have nets? I mean, couldn't the ball just go through the rim and call it a day? Technically, yes, but those little nets are doing more than just looking cool. First, they give visual confirmation that a shot actually went in. In a fast-paced game, a clean swish without a net can be so quick it's hard to tell if the ball passed through or just skimmed the rim. The net also slows the ball slightly as it falls, keeping it from bouncing wildly across the court and making it easier to grab for the next play. There are some everyday secrets hiding right outside your own front door. Take the humble porch light. Sure, it seems simple. It lights the way for homeowners and visitors, but in some neighborhoods, this little beacon carries hidden messages. In some communities, a flickering porch light isn't just a faulty bulb or wiring, it might be a hidden distress signal. If you ever spot one, take a closer look. Random flickers might just mean the bulb's dying, but patterned or rhythmic flashes could mean it might be time for action. For example, this man found a light flashing rhythmically on his nightly walk and posted it to Facebook. Users said it mimicked an SOS symbol in Morse code. The user who posted the video contacted authorities, but no update was provided. Still, if you see signals like this, it could be someone who has been kidnapped or suffering domestic violence calling for help. Then there are colored porch lights, and that's where things get even more mysterious. A red porch light might make you think of a certain red light district, but more often it symbolizes support for International Firefighters Day or the American Heart Association. Green porch lights? That usually means support for veterans or a nod to St. Paddy's Day. Blue lights often show support for law enforcement, autism awareness, or alopecia awareness, among others. Of course, plenty of people are just playing with their smart bulbs, setting the colors to match the season or their mood. Green and orange for Halloween, red and blue for the 4th of July, or anything that suits their vibe. So the next time you spot a glowing porch on your street, remember, it might be more than just a light. It could be a signal, one that's been hiding in plain sight all along. Some secrets hide in color codes, others in chocolate. If you've ever looked closely at the Nutella logo, you might have clocked something weird. The letter N is black, but the rest of the brand name is red. When Nutella was first created in Italy back in 1951, it wasn't even called Nutella. The original name? Supercrema Gianduja. Yeah, sounds like a spell from Harry Potter, right? Like, Supercrema Gianduja! Instantly spread toast with your hazelnut magic. But the law was about to petrificus totalis the spread right in its tracks. In 1962, a new law in Italy banned the use of words like super in food branding, claiming it could mislead customers. With a name like Super Crema, that super could land the company in legal hot chocolate if they couldn't prove it was, actually super. They needed a new name, so the creators, Francesco Rivella and Michele Ferrero, pivoted fast. They landed on Nutella, nut, and the Latin suffix ella, meaning sweet or little. Perfect, right? But then came the real hiccup. When they tried to trademark the new name, they hit another legal wall. Someone had already claimed a logo with the word Nutella written entirely in red. So instead of scrapping everything, they changed the first letter to black. Just one letter. Just enough to sneak past the trademark cops with a coy, chocolatey wink. And that's how we got the logo you know today. Red letters, one black letter in, and a whole brand aesthetic that's stuck to this day. In fact, the same color trick shows up in other Ferrero brands too, like Kinder. So next time you see that lonely black letter N, remember, it's not just a font choice. It's a legally delicious loophole wrapped in hazelnut and cocoa. Grocery carts seem pretty straightforward at first glance. Shopping goes in, shopper pushes shopping around, shopping empties shopper's wallet. Much like having a child. But have you ever noticed the loops on the back of child seats on shopping carts? Occasionally they'll have straps secured to them, but this isn't their intended purpose. They're actually designed to hold additional grocery bags so your more delicate groceries like eggs, veggies, and bread won't get crushed in the cart. Giving a fluffy pup you just met at the park a quick scratch might feel like an instant serotonin boost, but before you do, take a look at their collar. It might spill some secrets on the dog and you'll definitely want to know them. If the collar or leash is red, you might want to back away, slowly. You see, there's a secret color code some dog owners use to silently communicate what their furry companion is really like. And red, that's the canine equivalent of a flashing do not approach sign. In the code, red can signal aggression or anxiety, meaning this dog needs space from people, other animals, and especially your well-meaning hands. And it's not just red. If you spot a yellow leash, that can sometimes mean the dog is up for adoption. But other times it means the dog is nervous or unpredictable, not outright aggressive, but maybe not ready to be your new best friend. Orange, that dog's not a fan of other dogs. If a dog is wearing white, it might be deaf or blind, while purple means please don't feed the dog or give it treats. And if you see green, congrats. That's basically the doggy version of a welcome mat where petting, play, and cuddles are all on the table. While this color-coded system isn't used everywhere, it's gaining traction, and it's already much more common in places like Australia and some places in the US, especially for dogs in training. So next time you're tempted to pet a stranger's pooch, check it out. That leash might be saying more than the owner ever will. If you live in a city or urban neighborhood, you've likely seen sneakers hanging from power lines. Have you ever stopped to wonder what it's all about? Sure, you probably assumed it's just kids pulling pranks, but it might be more. One of the most persistent urban legends floating around about sneakers on power lines is that they signify gang territory markers. The idea is that a pair of dangling shoes mean you've just stepped into a turf where shady business goes down. Possibly of the illegal candy variety, if you catch my drift. But here's the twist. Nobody's actually confirmed it. Gang members certainly aren't handing out interviews about their shoe-based signage system, and the truth remains murky. That said, some police departments do admit they suspect those airborne Nikes might signal that certain not-so-legal activities are happening nearby. It's less confirmed fact and more of an urban suspicion, but either way, it might be best to steer clear. While the meaning behind sneakers tossed over power lines is often up for debate, there's another object you might spot up there with a much clearer purpose. Ever seen a big, colorful ball chilling on power lines like this and thought, okay, what kind of weird electrical Christmas tree is this? Well, those balls aren't for decoration, and no, they're not there to weigh the lines down during windy days. They're called marker balls, and their job is to warn pilots in low-flying aircraft, especially near airports, valleys, rivers, and highways. And don't let the distance fool you, these things are massive, up to 36 inches across and weighing as much as 17 pounds. Basically, if one of these fell on you, you'd feel it. The FAA actually requires these visibility balls in certain areas, and they usually come in aviation orange, white, or yellow, colors chosen to pop against the landscape. They're made of plastic, which is not just durable but also non-conductive because nobody wants an electrified beach ball in the sky. So yeah, next time you see one, give it a salute. it might just be saving a pilot's life. For most of us, those little stickers on fruit, they're just a mild inconvenience. But for those in the know, they're actually a handy way to make sure you're getting what you pay for. The stickers usually feature numbers which contain essential information about the produce. For example, if the sticker has a 5-digit number, where the first number is a 9, the food is organic. If there's a 4-digit number beginning with a 3 or 4, the item has been conventionally farmed. And if the sticker features a 5-digit number starting with an 8, the produce has been genetically modified. Maybe a mutant veggie sticker would be more suitable for those last ones. If you've ever had the jarring experience of driving over these bumps in highway roads, you've actually experienced them working precisely as intended. These raised bumps, known as sleeper lines or rumble strips, are there to keep drivers alert. If a driver begins drifting off to sleep at the wheel when their car starts to veer off course, their wheels hit the rumble strips. When they do, loud noises and vibrations are emitted throughout the vehicle to wake up the sleepy or distracted driver. More annoying than a regular alarm, but a potential lifesaver nonetheless. No one wants to use them, but we've all been there. The dreaded public bathroom. You probably don't spend much time looking around in there, but there's one oddly shaped detail hiding right under where you plant your behind, and the reason for it is weirder than you'd think. Unlike the full oval toilet seat you likely have at home, public toilet seats are almost always split at the front, forming that distinct horseshoe or U shape. In fact, it's a feature that's been required in public restrooms by plumbing codes since 1955. That's right, the American Standard National Plumbing Code laid it out plain. Public toilet seats had to be the open front kind. But the question remains, why? Well, the answer is actually more practical than you might expect. First off, that gap at the front, it's there to make wiping easier, especially for women. The extra space means people can clean up without having to touch the seat or stand up awkwardly. It also helps prevent accidental contact with the seat and reduces the chances of, shall we say, unwanted splashes hitting the front edge.
This is disgusting.
Outside the US, many other countries have also taken on this design and is often seen in heavily used restrooms like porta potties at festivals or sporting events where hygiene can go downhill fast. So next time you pop a squat in a public stall, remember, that strange shape isn't just weird plumbing design, it's purposeful engineering. Ah, peaceful stroll through nature. Sunlight streaming through the trees, birds chirping. Your phone finally out of signal range. It's the perfect escape, until you spot it. A tree trunk slashed with an ominous shade of purple. Wait, what? You might think it's just a weird aesthetic choice or vandalism, but nope. That purple paint, it's got a whole law named after it. The Purple Paint Law. In at least 18 U.S. states from Texas to Florida to Virginia, this eerie violet warning is a legally enforceable keep out or no trespassing sign. That's right, just a few sprays of purple paint is enough to get you charged for trespassing if you ignore it. No warning, no pleading ignorance, just purple and police. The idea is that it's cheaper for landowners and harder to tear down than a sign, and it's subtle. Almost too subtle for some. In fact, most people don't even know what it means, but don't think that gets you off the hook if you accidentally stumble into a purple paint zone. And it gets even more confusing in places like Idaho and Montana where orange paint is used instead of purple. Bottom line, if you're deep in nature and see a lone painted post, don't keep walking. Turn around. Next time you grab your mail, take a closer look at your mailbox. Ever notice small reflective stickers on it that look like this? Well, turns out these little markers might be carrying a dark secret function. Some believe these colored dots are part of a secret FEMA code used to label U.S. residents for the coming New World Order. In this theory, red means you're a threat and will be eliminated, blue means you're marked for re-education, and yellow means you'll comply. Sounds like dystopian fiction. That's because it totally is. But it hasn't stopped the rumors. In truth, these stickers may not be a part of some grand conspiracy, but that doesn't mean they're meaningless. Their purpose varies depending on where you live. Often they help mail carriers identify customer types or newspaper subscriptions. For example, different colors might indicate what type of paper you get and how frequently, whether it's daily, weekend delivery, or just Sundays. They're mostly found on rural routes where addresses can be hard to spot. Other times, the stickers might be used by canvassers to mark houses they've already called at. Then there are these paw print stickers. They're part of a safety measure to protect postal workers. Orange means there's a dog at that house. Yellow, there's one at the next stop. It's a simple system, but one that makes a difference. But not all uses of these stickers are so well-meaning. In some neighborhoods, criminals have reportedly started making use of these reflective stickers to sneakily mark homes. Theory is they return later to see if the sticker's still there, suggesting the house might be unoccupied and easy to break into. So while most mailbox stickers are nothing to fear, if one pops up out of nowhere, it might be worth asking around just in case. Ever wondered why so many toothpaste varieties have different colored stripes? The practice has its origins in the 70s when consumer demand rose for toothpastes that not only prevented decay, but also freshened breath. So toothpaste brands added different colors to their product representing different aspects. There was the white fluoride base for cavity and decay protection, a blue aqua gel for fresh breath, and a red gel for healthy gums and plaque prevention. Interestingly, with many brands of striped toothpaste, each colored component is actually composed of the same substance, fulfilling the same role. The different coloration is just a marketing choice to create a distinctive look, and most non-striped toothpastes offer nearly identical hygienic benefits. But decades of market research have proven that many buyers prefer the stripy variety over the plain old white product. So it's fair to say colorful toothpaste has earned its stripes. If you're ever wandering the soda aisle in the springtime, watch out and see if you can spot something. Right there, see that Coke with the yellow cap? Seriously, these special bottles come around once a year, and for one very special reason. This is a specific, unique variety of Coke called Kosher for Passover Coke. That yellow cap signals the drink is kosher for Passover. While regular Coke is usually considered kosher, during the holiday, Jewish dietary rules get stricter, and one major no-go is kitniyat. That includes rice, legumes, and corn. Since regular Coke in the US is sweetened with corn syrup, it's out for the week. So every year, Coke swaps out the syrup for good old cane sugar, the same magic ingredient used in the highly sought-after Mexican Coke you might have heard of. But there's more to it than just switching sweeteners. The production of kosher for Passover products also needs to be supervised by a rabbi. Once approved, they earn a P-shaped stamp on the product called a hechsher. Pair that with the yellow cap and you've got yourself a bottle of spiritually sanctioned fizz. And Coca-Cola is not the only one getting a Passover makeover. Lay's drops special edition chips in red bags using kosher for Passover oil instead of anything corn-based. So if you spot a yellow cap Coke this spring, give it a try. It's not just soda, it's limited edition, spiritually upgraded, and just maybe the holiest bottle of pop you'll ever drink. Beer bottles have a pretty distinctive shape, and many people prefer bottles to cans when consuming their favorite beverages. But though they may not realize it, their preferences come down to a matter of ingenious design. The neck of a bottle of beer was designed for people to hold instead of grasping the body of the bottle. By holding the neck, as little body heat as possible is transferred into the beer or beverage, keeping it cooler for longer. The narrow neck also serves as a built-in funnel. We all know the unspoken social rules of the elevator. We step into them, stare at the doors, avoid eye contact at all costs, and ride in silence. But behind that awkward stillness, elevators are full of subtle features and hidden meanings you probably have never noticed. For starters, ever caught how some elevators sometimes ding once and other times ding twice? That's not a glitch in the Matrix. The dings are part of an accessibility system. One ding signals the elevator is going up, and two dings means it's going down. It's designed to help visually impaired passengers identify the direction without needing to see the display. But there's more. Ever noticed one of these little star symbols next to a floor button in an elevator? They're there to highlight important floors. Most of the time, the star marks the level with the main emergency exit, usually the ground floor or lobby for evacuations and emergency. But it can vary. In buildings with big parking garages, it might point to a service floor for maintenance crews. In hospitals, it could mark an emergency department or a restricted area. Basically, it's a quick way to help elevator passengers know where the critical stuff is. Then there are the mirrors in elevators. Yep, it's not just so you can awkwardly avoid eye contact by pretending to fix your hair. Mirrors were originally added to make elevators feel less claustrophobic, to calm anxiety, and create the illusion of space. But it also helps wheelchair users back in and out without turning around, so next time you're riding in awkward silence, remember, every ding, star, and shiny surface is telling a story. You just have to know how to read it. We've all been there. Busted zipper, rogue hem, AWOL strap, and reached for a safety pin. You jab it in, parade holds, and try not to stab yourself. But next time you fumble with one of these tiny metal MVPs, take a closer look. See that tiny hole in the coil? That little circle is doing way more work than you think. In fact, the safety pin has two secret holes, one up top where it latches and one tucked into the bottom coil. And both are legit engineering flexes. That top hole, it takes pressure off the latch so you can open and close it without needing Hulk hands. The bottom one, that's where the magic happens. It's part of the spring mechanism that lets the pin snap open, and more importantly, snap and stay closed. Without that little hole keeping tension in the coil, you'd basically be poking yourself with a sad floppy piece of wire. Not ideal when you're being crammed into a tux from 8th grade because it still looks nice. Cue lifelong emotional damage. Thanks for the trauma, Mom. Ever notice those tightly woven strips on the ends of your bathroom towels? No? Take a look. They're not just there for decoration, though the colors and patterns might make you think otherwise. These little details are actually hiding some surprisingly smart secrets. Towels go through a lot. Constant rubbing, drying, washing, rinse, repeat. All that action can seriously wear them down. Without backup, the edges would start to fray and unravel. That's where the woven strip comes in. Sometimes known as Dobby borders, these reinforced bands are strategically placed to hold the towel structure together. They lock the threads in place, keeping the towel from slowly self-destructing. Towels with those woven strips are less likely to stretch out over time. That's actually one reason you'll see them in places like hotels and spas that need towels that can hold their shape after going through industrial washers again and again. Funny how something you've used your whole life still has secrets left to reveal. Speaking of, think you know how to spot the freshest eggs at the grocery store? Think again. Chances are you've got a carton of eggs chilling in the kitchen right now. Scrambled, fried, baked into Grandma's secret brownie recipe, they're everywhere. But what if I told you there's a secret code literally printed on your egg carton that reveals everything you need to know about their freshness? No, it's not just the expiration date. That's child's play. Somewhere close to the sell-by date, there's a mysterious 3-digit number. That, my friends, is the Julian date, and it tells you the exact day of the year those eggs were packaged. So if your carton's Julian date is 024, that means the eggs were packed on January 24th. Legally, eggs can be sold up to 30 days after they're packed, so your fresh eggs might already be a month old when you grab them off the shelf, so it's worth knowing. Next time you're shopping and pretending not to panic in the dairy aisle, take a sec. Check that Julian date. Now that's what I'd call a crackin' cheat code. I'll see myself out. Moving on, ever seen a window with those big bulging wrought iron bars and wondered what's up? Turns out they're not just some quirky design flex. These belly bars are actually doing some pretty heavy lifting for home security and more. First off, that outward curve isn't just for flair. It creates a little ledge that can help support flower boxes, air conditioning units, or any other precariously balanced windowsill add-ons. The bars can even catch a falling planter before it turns into a sidewalk hazard. They also beef up home security in a surprisingly smart way. The bulge pushes the bars farther from the window itself, making it tougher for burglars to wedge tools in or get enough leverage to break in. You're most likely to spot them in older neighborhoods where traditional architecture still holds strong. In the US, that means places like New York City, while belly grills are common across Europe and places like Italy. Who knew having a big belly could be such a good thing? Take that, World Health Organization. Chances are you've held hundreds or maybe even thousands of dollar bills over the years. But have you ever noticed one with a strange little mark on it? They're easy to miss, and by the time you start wondering what it was, the bill's already long gone. These tiny stamps, known as chop marks, are most commonly found on larger denominations like $50 or $100 bills. Often a single bill might carry multiple chop marks at once, but what are they? Just random stamps? Secret marks of underworld crime? Well, don't worry. These marks are all above board and perfectly legal. But what do they mean, and where do they come from? See, in regions where foreign currency circulates heavily, especially parts of Asia and Latin America, money changers, local banks, and other financial institutions use these stamps to mark authentic banknotes from other currencies. They serve as a kind of verification and stamp of approval that says, this bill is legit. Historically, chop marking dates back to the 19th and early 20th centuries when U.S. trade dollars and silver coins circulated widely in Asia. Merchants would stamp these coins with chop marks to guarantee their authenticity. Over time, the practice extended to paper currency, especially American $100 bills, which are still often accepted in tourist-heavy areas like resorts and hotels. If you've ever spotted one of these weird little marks on a dollar bill, you're not the only one. But banks probably hope you don't think too hard about it. Why? Because stuff like that can make people suspicious. Even harmless marks might look like damage, counterfeiting, or something shady, and when it comes to money, the more boring and predictable it seems, the better people feel about using it. Each chop mark varies in design, color, and shape depending on the locale and the money changer applying it. Though uncommon in the United States, chop mark dollars do sometimes make their way back to American soil. So if you ever happen to spot one of these mysterious little stamps, though they're more than just ink, they're a hidden history of where that banknote has been. The metal cap on the end of a tape measure may seem as though it's loose and needs fixing, but this is actually part of the design. The cap is designed so you can get the exact same readings whether you're using the tape flat against a surface or hooked around something. When it's pressing against a wall or other surface, the cap is pushed slightly inwards. Because the distance the cap moves by is roughly equal to the cap's thickness, this stops the cap size being added to the length measurement.
Perfect.
The opposite occurs when the cap is hooked onto a surface. Because the cap no longer adds length by being in the way, it extends so the measurements can be taken from the exact same point on the tape measure. By accounting for the added or subtracted length of the cap, the reading is accurate every time. When signing a check, you probably assume you're writing on a regular old straight line. But if you look very, very closely at that line, it's actually made up of repeating print which says "Authorized Signature" over and over. This is called microprinting, where the print is so small that if a document is illegally photocopied, it becomes unreadable. So if you ever feel you may be signing something dubious of this kind, just break out your magnifying glass. You may have noticed some fans or wind turbines with strange bumps on their leading edge. This sawtooth pattern was inspired by humpback whales, which have similar bumps on their fins called tubercles. Researchers found that in certain conditions, these bumps increase the lift and decrease the drag of the fin. Essentially, it makes fins, blades, and turbines more efficient. The bumps focus the flow of air into a narrower stream, creating higher velocities and hence lift. This tends to increase efficiency by about 20%. The bumps also lead to greater stability and decreased noise, which is why they are perfect for things like wind turbines and computer cooling. So why aren't they used everywhere? Well, the technology works well on small scale, but when applied to larger systems, there are differences in their efficiency and how they operate, so the benefits are harder to quantify. The added manufacturing complexities mean many companies are put off from this design. These numbered rotating bezel rings are commonly found on watches, much to the confusion of anyone who refuses to read user manuals. If that sounds familiar, I'll do the reading for you. The bezel ring is designed to measure elapsed time. If this is the time and you want to set a timer, you can set the bezel here on the minute hand where it currently is and go about your task. When you look back, just read the number on the bezel, and that's the amount of time that's elapsed since you started the timer. Although you could use it to monitor your work breaks or time spent on tests, it's most useful for divers. Because oxygen tanks only last a certain amount of time, divers can set the marker to align with the minute hand at a specific point. They can either set it to the time the dive began or the time their oxygen will run out. Then it's just a matter of keeping one eye on the watch and the other on any sea monsters that are coming too close for comfort. Though these types of toothpicks might look like the wooden hilted sword of a hamster samurai, the reality is not quite as exciting. The first groove on the toothpick is weak and can be broken off easily. This allows it to serve as a stand after use, helping avoid contact with the table or the tablecloth and keeping things a little cleaner and classier. Many freestanding ovens have a drawer beneath them, and many of these drawers are filled with cookie sheets, pots, and pans. While it may be the perfect size, that's not actually the drawer's intended purpose. These drawers are actually meant to keep food warm, or in some instances even slow cook foods on lower temperatures than the main oven provides. What did you make of this round of everyday secrets? If you know any more secrets I didn't mention, leave them in the comments below so we can keep this series rolling. As always, thanks for watching.